Bulabinaka Fiji, and welcome to Gold FM's Speak Your Mind. Well, this afternoon we speak of a topic that is hot on many Fijians' conversations and also their minds. It's the national minimum wage, and I'm glad to be joined today in studio by the acting director for Labour Standards Services, and that's Mr. Atish Kumar. Mr. Kumar, welcome to the show. And, let's talk national minimum wage. Now, we've spoken about this on our various radio shows. And the question that, first of all, it's now the second time in about, I'd say less than a year that this has been discussed and has also been raised by this government. And now we've moved up by 16% from what it was, right? And $2.32 is now the national minimum wage. Now, let's just see, I'm going to ask you the significance of this.
Thank you, Badali. It's very important for us to understand the fact that the national minimum wage through the government promises will be going in terms of it's currently is $2. From 1st of July 2015, the national minimum wage is going to be increased to $2.32 an hour. Of course, this is very, very important in terms of the take-home pay for the workers, in terms of ensuring that those workers who are not covered under the sectoral minimum wage under 10 sectoral minimum wage are covered under national minimum wage. Now, in terms of the issues of national minimum wage, we also need to look at the fact that the national minimum wage came into effect on the 1st of March 2014.
Last year.
Yeah, last year. Of course, that at the time there was a consultation being done, and of course, is to understand that Section 33 of the Constitution, which talks about right to work and a just minimum wage, and it ensures that the minimum wage be set up. Now, in this, what had actually happened is that government, through the research, and of course the research was done, the baseline survey was done with the guidance of Dr. Reddy. At the time, he was with the Fiji National University. And of course, through the guidance and of course through the extensive consultation process, then of course this process was followed. Now, if you look at the ILO Convention number 144, that talks about consultation in terms of the setting up the policy and of course in making of the national minimum wage, government through the consultation of the social partners. Now what we have done, we have done the consultation to all the sectors around Fiji. We have covered about more than 10,000 workers around Fiji in terms of ensuring that we get a fair share in terms of chance of what the workers think about the national minimum wage. Now, prior to the national minimum wage coming into effect, in Fiji we had the sectoral based wage rate. For example, we have 10 sectors: wholesale, retail, garment, security services, manufacturing, road transport,
representing the different
sectors of employers. And we had the minimum wage rate set up through the tripartite consultation in these sectors. For example, currently under the 2012 wage regulation orders, which came into effect in 2012, it's very important to note that wholesale and retail, the minimum rate is $2.97 an hour.
Okay.
Right. Okay. The national minimum wage is a wage that is covering those sectors where the 10 sectorial wages rates are not covered. For example, prior to 1st of March 2014, we did not have any minimum rate of pay. For example, those who are in domestic employment, for example, the house girls and the house boys. Now, those who are working in a backyard garage, there was no minimum rate for them. Those who are working as car boys and car girls, of course, they were car wash boys, there was no minimum rate for them.
Really just casual workers.
Right. So in that, it was determined by the employer. And many of times, and of course, many situations, what happened is that employer would pay them, say, about 50 cents to 70 cents an hour, right? Prior to 1st of March 2014, because there was no minimum rate for them. Now, through the consultation process, through in terms of ensuring that the government has taken out the research in this, in terms of ensuring that we get to hear these workers. And through this consultation, through going to these workers and hearing their views, the national minimum wage came into effect in terms of ensuring that we have a minimum rate for them. And with this coming into effect, then these workers got, in terms of the wages were increased. They had, of course, in many situations where workers were getting about $40 to $50 an hour, they start getting about $96 to $97 an hour. And in many situations, we have seen that some of the employees have been paying above the national minimum wage. And of course, there were some employers who have been paying, above $2 an hour. And of course, we congratulate them. We thank them for their effort in terms of ensuring productivity is increased. And with the national minimum wage coming into effect, what we have seen is that the employers and of course the workers have been able to discuss things together. They've been able to discuss in terms of productivity issues. They've been able to discuss in terms of ensuring that the worker earns above the national minimum wage. So national minimum wage is a guideline. $2 per hour is a guideline. To the employers, and we are ensuring that no employer who, in terms of the coverage of national minimum wage, no employer pays below the $2 per hour.
Well, what we need to also understand is we've never had this done before.
Exactly.
And
yes.
it's only set up last year.
Right.
And now another question that comes into mind is, what about those who smaller businesses?
Right.
And this, they were also taken into account? So
Yes.
that
Thank you, Vidali. Okay, very important is the recommendation by, of course, Dr. Reddy was coming to 1st of March. It was to have the national minimum wage set up at $2.32 an hour. That is on 1st of March, okay, which consists of 60% of the median wage. Now, looking at the SMEs, the concerns raised by the SMEs, small and medium micro enterprises, they may not be able to afford at that time the $2.32 an hour. Now, the second recommendation, of course, for Dr. Reddy was to have it at $2 per hour, and then review within a year. Now, March 2014, the $2 per hour came into effect.
That's right.
Of course, after that, government reviewed within, that is less than a year. And of course, now from 1st of July, we are having the rate going up to $2.32 an hour. So that is, I think, is very important for people to understand that prior to 1st of March 2014, we never had a national minimum wage in Fiji.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Atish Kumar, the Acting Director for the Labour Standards Services, and we will continue our discussion with him regarding the national minimum wage. Now, for those of you listening in on Gold FM this afternoon, feel free to call in with your questions, 3220906, 3220907, or you could always send us an email at goldfm@fbc.com.fj. Welcome back to Gold FM, Speak Your Mind, and we're talking about the national minimum wage. It's been discussed in Parliament, and now the Minister for Employment, Productivity and Industrial Relations, the Honourable Chochi Conrote, has said that it will be increased to $2.32. Now, we've been discussing it this afternoon with Mr. Atish Kumar, the Acting Director for Labour Standards Services, and I'm going to ask you, Mr. Kumar, now there has been some criticism with the amount, as it has been done also from when we first announced the national minimum wage at $2 last year. Now, how would you respond to the calls for a higher national minimum wage?
Thank you, Vidali. Right, it's very important for us to understand in terms of the concept of national minimum wage, and of course, the application of the national minimum wage to the SMEs. Now, very important is when we look at the SMEs, we also need to look at the fact that they are, of course, they are to create jobs. Now, if you look at the other sectors, for example, the manufacturing sector, the wage rate is already high, of course, in terms of above the national minimum wage, which is $3.02 an hour. The sales sector, wholesale and retail, of course, there is a $2.97 an hour. Right, and of course the building and civil sector, of course, it's above $3. So those are the sectors which are paying above the national minimum wage. Now, when we talk about the national minimum wage, we are talking about, of course, as I said before, talking about the small and medium micro enterprises. Right, for example, those who are car washes, yes, of course, the house
domestic workers,
of course. Now, if you look at the increase now. Prior to the 1st of July, we can say 2015, okay, currently a worker who is working in these sectors, which are covered in the national minimum wage, if they're working for 48 hours, they will get a take-home pay of about $96 per week, right? Okay, that's for 48 hours work now. After 1st of July, 2015, that same worker will get $111.36 per week. Right, there is an increase of $15.36 per week for that worker's pay. Now, if the worker is employed for 45 hours, right, currently the worker would get about $90 per week for 45 hours of work. That's from Monday to Friday for 9 hours per day. Now, the same worker would earn about $104.40 after 1st of July 2015. So there is an increase of $21.16 for that workers' take-home pay. Now, if you look at it from previously when there was no minimum wage, there was no national minimum wage covering these sectors, these workers would never get that. So it is very important for us to understand that in terms of the issues of the national minimum wage, there will be progressive increase. We will continue in terms of we will ensure that everyone has to work together to ensure that our economy grows. We have to ensure that we have investments in the country. We have to ensure that we have the right climate. We have to create the right climate for people to understand. And of course, it's very important for us to look at the fact that we need to ensure that we increase productivity. Now, in that, we have also noted that the issue in terms of the workers being trained, of course, we also thank the employers who are actually spending time, of course, effort in terms of money, in terms of training these workers so that productivity is increased. So in terms of these issues, we can say that there will be, of course, a progressive increase in terms of the national minimum wage. And of course, it's not that there will be just $2.32 an hour. It won't. No, there will be progressive increase, and we need to ensure that we collectively work together to increase the national minimum wage.
I mean, like, we want to set it at $3.50, but hey, we will have to work towards that $3.50.
Yes.
I mean, now just from jumping from $2 to $2.32 in less than a year.
Right, exactly. Yes.
Well, I wanted to ask you, monitoring and compliance, ensuring that the employers adhere to these regulations. Who does that?
Thank you. Really, yes. I was saying very important. Prior to the national minimum wage coming into effect in the 2014 budget, government has given the labor compliance service, of course, to the Ministry of, at that time, Ministry of Labor, now Ministry of Employment. They had given an increase of $250,000 for the labor compliance services to employ more inspectors. We had about 18 inspectors who have been employed to monitor the implementation of the national minimum wage. Now, 2015 budget, again, we are given the same amount in terms of ensuring that we monitor those employers who are not paying the national minimum wage. And of course, last year, for 2014, we have recovered a sum of $47,910.14 that is paid out to these workers, who paid out to these workers through these employers who were not complying with the national minimum wage. And of course, if you look at the compliance rate, we can say we have about 98.62% of employers who have been complying with the national minimum wage. We are also thankful to the employees. There are many situations we have seen that employees are paying above the national minimum wage, paying above the $2 rate. And of course, there are some situations we can say that the employers are willing to pay above $2.32 an hour because they are looking at the workers, they have trained them, and the workers are able to produce. So in that situation, national minimum wage is just a guideline, and they are paying up. And of course, in terms of the negotiations with workers and employers, in terms of the ERP, the employer and the worker can sit down and discuss their contract, discuss the pay issues, and that's where the workers and of course the employees are encouraged to ensure that they come to an amicable settlement in terms of the issues of pay. There is a minimum rate, but a lot of times we have seen that the workers are negotiating above the minimum rate of pay.
I mean, there's a lot of talk of trying to meet the minimum wage, but we don't often highlight those who pay well above the minimum wage. Right?
Yes. So, yeah, of course, we thank those employees. They have been very supportive of that. They have been coming out, and of course, they are paying their workers well. So we thank them for that.
All right. Well, thank you again, Mr. Atish Kumar, clearing that up for us this afternoon. And we'll continue right after this short break talking about national minimum wage on Gold FM Speak Your Mind. Welcome back to Gold FM Speak Your Mind as we continue our discussion with the national minimum wage. And here with us, like I said earlier, Mr. Atish Kumar, the Acting Director for the Labour Standard Services. Now, Mr. Kumar, we talked about, the monitoring and the compliance. And you also mentioned that there were a couple of, there was certain amount that you mentioned that was recovered from those that did not comply.
Yes,
now, and that is a very important what we ought to also highlight here is that those who don't adhere to these regulations and also to trying to get the national minimum wage also have to pay a penalty.
Exactly. Yes.
Right? And how much is it exactly that, or what happens when they don't adhere to it?
Yes, Pidali. Yes. Of course, very important is compliance. There is a law in place, and employers must comply with it. There is no two ways about it. The national minimum wage is there, the 10 sectoral wages rates is there, so they must comply with it. Now, in terms of the compliance team, what the compliance team does is that we do inspections. we conduct inspections, and we also get feedback from the members of public. Now, when we conduct inspection, we check through the records of the employer. We interview the workers to ensure that they are paid the minimum rate of pay. In a situation where we see in terms of the records of the employees that the minimum rates are not paid, and of course we audit those records and we backdate it to the day the wages rate came into effect, and from there the claim is given to the employer. In a situation the employer fails to pay, then of course we give in terms of the fixed penalty notice, it ranges from $100 to a $5,000 fixed penalty notice. An employer fails to pay that, and of course it goes to the employment tribunal. Of course the employer is taken to task, employer is charged, and of course then of course it's taken to court. Now, very important is what we have seen, the cooperation from the employers. We have also gone in to advise the employers. We have also consulted the employers, and we are also conducting the awareness programs for the employers to ensure that those who have not known about national minimum wage, they know about national minimum wage and they comply with them. So the compliance team also does the awareness program for the employers. We are ensuring that when you go out, we also advise the employers that how to keep the records. We also advise the workers in terms of what are the rates of pay, what are their rights, and of course if the workers who are not they feel that of course there is they want to lodge a complaint, they can always come to the Ministry of Employment at any office around Fiji. They can lodge a complaint. They can even go give us a call, or probably they can visit the nearest employment office, and we will of course investigate those employers who are not paying the national minimum wage.
All right. Well, we also look at, it's really important with the national minimum wage and how it also affects, the various sectors straight out, right through to, say, our rural agricultural, those involved in rural agriculture. Now, how does national minimum wage, we talk about those, when we say national minimum wage, many also think, okay, it's the white collar jobs, it's those in offices, it's those in cities, but it does also help build the economy, right?
Yes, thank you, Padali. Of course, the national minimum wage is going to benefit both the rural and the urban sectors. Around 100,000 workers will benefit from this national minimum wage in terms of ensuring that they have a set wage rate. When they go to the employer will pay them that particular wage rate. Prior to the 1st of March 2014, there was no set wage rate for those who are under this national minimum wage sector. And that's where the problem was, because the employer would say that I would pay you, say, $1 an hour or even $1.50 an hour. They would have to agree to it. Now there is a minimum rate that stipulates very clearly that employer has to pay that. There is no two ways about it. That is apart from the 10 sectoral wage rate that we have. Now, in terms of the rural areas, we've also noted and seen that, of course, the RSC scheme, the Recognized Seasonal Work scheme, that is coming in. That is also going to help in terms of alleviate poverty, in terms of provide jobs for people who are in the rural areas, in terms of ensuring that we get better economic returns for those people who are in the rural areas. So it's very, very important for us to, in terms of, for all of Fijians to work together collectively so that we can increase, progressively the national minimum wage. And of course, it's going to help everyone, children, the households, everyone in the country in terms of ensuring that there is a better take-home pay, and of course, people are able to spend then.
Well, from your view, from what we've looked at, and in terms of the employers that have been adhering and also complying to the national minimum wage from last year, you mentioned a percentage, 97%?
98.5%, yes.
That's quite high.
Right.
And we're also, for that minimum that did not adhere, would you say it was really just misunderstanding?
Yes, of course. I think when we went to these employers, some of them, of course, stated very clearly that they may have made a mistake in terms of correcting the minimum rate of pay. So we assisted them. We ensured them they pay the minimum rate, they backdate to the day they came into effect, and workers were paid. Through our compliance team, and employers paid all these workers. We ensured that this money is paid to the workers. And of course, from the Ministry of Employment point of view, we have started in terms of the electronic fund transfer to the workers' bank account. So normally what happens is that when a worker comes in to complain to the Ministry of Employment, we provide the claims to the employer pays, and then that money is then transferred to the worker's bank account. So the worker doesn't have to come to and collect a check. So if the worker is in Reiki, the money within a span of about 7 days is sitting in his bank account.
So you ensure that it's directly sent straight to their bank
account, and they benefit from it, because that's very, very important.
Oh, so how would you say this has responded with those who have finally become aware of the different wage, that has been set for their different sectors? Has this been happening quite a bit in your various offices?
Yes, of course. We have been conducting awareness to these employers, and we have also noted that employers have been coming to us and, of course, discussing these issues, national minimum wage. And I think a lot of times we have seen that those employers are paying above the minimum wage, so they don't have to worry. They are actually complying in terms of the national minimum wage. So those, of course, who are not paying, we will be coming to them. We will be ensuring them that every worker gets the right share.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Tishkumar, the Acting Director for Labour Standard Services. Now, just before you go, what else would you like to add, and just before to just direct again to our listening and viewing public?
Thank you, Kadeli. Yes, I think just a request to, of course, the members of the public and to all the employers that please, the cabinet and endorse, of course, that the national minimum wage of $2.32 an hour will come into effect from 1st of July 2015. Of course, this was the government promise, of course, and they have delivered in terms of the promise, and we want to ensure and want to tell the employers that it's very, very important to comply with the national minimum wage. If there's any problem which they face in terms of the rates of pay and in terms of ensuring that they're unable to maintain the records, they must consult the nearest Ministry of Employment office. We are going to assist them in terms of providing them with the advice so they can comply with the national minimum wage.
And for those who need more information, you can always check the website, and that's www.labor.gov.mj.
Or workers can, of course, give an email in terms of atish.kumar@labor.gov.mj, or they can call on 9906-369 so that we can assist in terms of ensuring that both the employer and the workers are on the know about the national minimum wage.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar.
Thank you.
And again, we mentioned a little bit about the workers' scheme, recognized workers' scheme, and we will all be talking about this right after this short break. Welcome back to Gold FM, Speak Your Mind. And, well, we've jumped from national minimum wage to something equally just as hot. And that's the topic of the, recognized workers scheme with New Zealand. And with me is the Director of National Employment Centre, and that's Mr. Williame Vangelamba. Welcome to the show, Mr. Vangelamba.
Thank you, Apelli.
Well, it's good to have you on the show because I got to tell you, Mr. Vangelamba, this topic of the workers' scheme has been, one that has been thoroughly discussed by listeners of Gold FM and also viewers of FBC TV. Now, let's start from the beginning, right, about the idea of the New Zealand regional, the workers' scheme, the recognized workers' scheme, and how did this come about?
Thank you, Apelli. Yes, this goes back to 2006. I think there was an agreement between New Zealand, Australia, and Fiji in regard to seasonal workers. But due to some circumstances, this was dropped. And I think for the government that in 2000 and
I think we can understand why we didn't
come back into place, and especially the two government, Australian government and New Zealand, give us this opportunity, great opportunity to accept Fiji again for this RSE scheme.
Yeah, because this scheme is also available to other Pacific Islanders, namely Samoa and I think the Cook Islands. It's just to some of the opening it up for Samoa. Is that right? And now Fiji, we have a lot of Fijians in Australia and New Zealand, and this would have been something that had to be thoroughly negotiated and also had to be considered by your department, because with this first batch of workers that will head to New Zealand will perhaps determine the continuation of the scheme. Now, how did you go about the process of selection?
Okay, thank you. Yes, the government has approved the selection criteria, which was submitted. I think the government approved that last year, and as we speak, the foreign employment services are using that selection criteria, which is very vigorous. We, as you said, the VT pilot workers proposed to leave also soon. We make sure that these pilot workers are healthy and fit, so that they can be very productive when they when they are employed in New Zealand.
It was quite surprising to many that they went through a fitness test.
Yes, they have to go through these vigorous tests. So as I said, we need quality people, and I believe our people are work hard, very committed. They work very hard, and just to add, we, as you said, the pilot team, to make sure that this team, because will be the ambassador in this scheme. And once this is successful, it will be a continuous process in the future for our unemployed disadvantages.
Now, how many in total did the applications that come in? Was it over how long a period did it take, and how many responded?
As we speak, we have registered 5,000 unemployed interested in these employment preferences. From that 5,000, and they go through these vigorous selection criteria, we managed to only those 101 pass the selection criteria. Now, these 101 are in our work-ready pool. And from that 101, 30 have been selected through the bureau selection. And they are ready to leave our source.
Now, what's the process from now? They await. Do they go through another interview process with potential employers from New Zealand?
Yes, under the bilateral agreements, the final selection is done by the employer, the recognized seasonal employers from New Zealand. So these 30 pilot that have been passed through the selection criteria will be sent to the employers in New Zealand, and they will choose their preferences according to their height, their weight, their specification. And once they give us that specification, and we'll apply through the visa through the immigration office in Suva.
Now, all 30 are going to be headed to New Zealand, or do they wait here?
As we speak, we are working on 12. 12 will be leaving also on the 26th in Feb. So that will be decided by the employer, not us. It's the employer driven, demand driven.
Okay. Now, you also mentioned that the others make up the ready to be employed. Well, they all be ready to be employed.
Work ready pool.
Work ready pool. Excuse me, the work ready pool, and they remain with their names remain with the center, the employment center, and will be considered for future.
Yes, that is the reason we would like to have a work ready pool, so that all those who have passed the selection criteria will be put in this ready pool, and we wait for the employer. As you are aware that the arrangements with New Zealand is a demand driven. If this 30 pilot is successful, then we might expect the end of this year they'll demand for Samoa. So we already have a pool in place.
What's the initial time that they're expected to work there?
The first arrangement with a representative from New Zealand, they said after 7 months. So I think they have allocated a certain number for Fiji. As we speak, the total number of RSC workers is about 8,000 for all the regional countries. Right. Samoa, Tonga, Nauru, Kiribati, Vanuatu, and Papua New Guinea. So they increased it to 9,000. So that extra 1,000 they are designated probably for Fiji, because Fiji has joined the scheme.
Now, it's going to depend also on just how well our initial.
Yes, that actually depends on the 30. So we are in our pre-departure training that will be conducted very soon to the 30. We make sure that we train these people aware of the responsibility and accountability for our future RSC workers.
All right. Well, Mr. Langlamba, we will take a short break, but right after this, I will ask and we'll talk a little bit about that criteria and what those responsibilities entail. Right here on Gold FM, Speak Your Mind, we continue our discussion with the director for the National Employment Center, Mr. Viliame Langlamba. Welcome back to Gold FM Speak Your Mind, right here with Mr. William Evangelamba, the director of the National Employment Centre, and we've been talking about the New Zealand's recognised workers scheme, and we looked at the selection of the over about 100 potential employees. And these successful workers went through vigorous training, as you had highlighted, and 30 have been selected for potential, for the final lot to go to New Zealand, and now 12 are going to be interviewed by a potential employer from New Zealand, and we're also looking at the others to be employed, to also be interviewed and employed by other group. Now, what many will ask for those for our public is, what do they need to bring? What do they need to bring to be able to be considered?
Thank you, Epel. First of all, if you're unemployed, you have to register with the National Employment Centre. Once you're employed, there are 4 employment creation services under this policy. One of them is foreign employment. And then they will ask you which type of employment creation service you want to join. So if you want to join foreign employment services, then they will put your foreign employment services. Once you come to do the foreign employment services, you need to have a passport, valid passport for 13 months. Because the time frame for a worker to be working in New Zealand is about 7 months. So you should have a valid passport, and you will go through a health check, vigorous health check. We have to demarcate this one. One is a generic health check, and one is a specific health check. The generic health check can be done by individual general
medical practitioners
around Fiji. But the specific medical check will be done by our
appointed.
We have a designated occupational doctor in the Ministry of Labour. He'll do that. Also, you if you have a no criminal record.
No criminal record.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's the only thing, that you have to be healthy and fit, because this job is not an easy job, because it's.
All right. So I want to ask, what types of jobs are we looking at?
In New Zealand, we have 2 services: the viticulture and horticulture. The viticulture is talking about grapes, picking grapes, and the other is apples and other. So these are some of the 2. And not only they learn how to on the horticulture, I think under the agreement they can choose to do other skills. If they want to learn welding, or the woman they want to do sewing. So it's already in the agreement. They can ask the employer also to train them on these skills. So these are some of the things that and 17 to RSC.
So does the National Employment Centre assist with the preparation of these agreements, or is it solely prepared from by the employers from the foreign countries?
It's a bilateral. So it's both parties.
Okay.
They bring their own the document, and they vetted by our legal, including the Solicitor General. Okay. So they come up with a document, which is reflected in the bilateral agreement,
which all will adhere to.
Interagency understanding, which is called the interagency understanding.
Okay.
So we have our 2 parties' responsibility.
Right. Now we talked about the 12 that are who will be being interviewed by a potential employer from New Zealand, and they arrive this week. Now, what happens to the other group that awaits?
I think they have their definitive timeline. It depends on their arrangements. As a little bit arranged by our counterpart in New Zealand, that the first employer will be arriving in Fiji this week to do the interview and pick from the 30 that has been gone through the barrel selections.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask, what about those names of those who had been eliminated from the 100 that was selected? What happens to the other names of those? Do they stay in the registration of the National Employment Centre?
Yes, we have 3 work-ready pools. The final one, what we discussed, the 101.
Right.
So we have only, there are some other, if you fail in the first genetic selection, then you advise, please improve on this area. Improve on it. Get your passport. You have to live in the rural area. These are some of the filtering process. We make sure that basically as a government policy, they first targeting the rural areas. So if you don't know the rural areas, then you are excluded from this from this initial stage. And maybe after we exhausted all the people living in the rural area, then we move to the urban areas.
What was the response like from the rural areas for this initial phase?
Yes, a very positive response. Yeah, because this policy was coming to play because of the 2010-2011 unemployed and employment survey that conducted by strategic planning. That there's a majority of unemployed, majority of the disadvantaged are living in the rural areas. So based on that report, that's why the government came with the policy to target the rural unemployed first before we move into the urban areas.
It was clearly reflected also with the selection process because we had names being called out for those coming in from Vanuatu, and
Yes.
it was good to hear. It was good to hear, and I mean, it also showed a little bit more about how diverse those who were able to get into the scheme. Yeah?
Yes.
Now, looking at representation, is there a percentage also for female and males, of course, that you're ensuring?
Yes, very interesting, Apil. As I said, the vigorous health test. Some of the female, about 60-40%.
Okay.
Yeah. So some of our women pass that test, but it's not really the physical test that conducted by disciplinary forces. This is a customary made, tailor-made for our people.
Yeah, because I was getting worried that they were going through
based on the economic of how what they will do in New Zealand in terms of the VT and horticulture industries.
So for those of you who may be worried that it is some boot camp that you'll be going through, it is not.
No, it's not. It's not. It's a tailor-made so that we select the right people.
Now, I know the aim is to try and get as many employed through this scheme. Now, what are we looking at for the next phase? What's the direction?
Yes, we would like every unemployed in Fiji to get employed, to be employed. This is a great opportunity for people. We're hoping that Australia will already open the doors, but we are waiting for the government approval, cabinet decision on Australia. As we wait, we like to continue with this selection process, so that we capacity build our work-ready pool. So when Australia opens up, we already
got it ready.
We're ready. Just move people across.
Well, thank you very much for joining us and shedding more light on this worker scheme. Mr. William Evangelamba, now, before you leave, is there any other words that you'd like to impart to our potential employees headed to the foreign countries?
Yeah, thank you, Pel. Yes, I will encourage our unemployed there in our rural setting, also in our urban setting. The door is open for everyone to come and register with Forest. And this is a great opportunity for us to improve our livelihoods. And I know that unemployment is a big agenda for Fiji, and this surely will decrease unemployment in Fiji, and it will also improve our livelihoods. And RSC, for information, not only you learn how to do to work on the horticulture, also you can learn some skills. And when you come back from Fiji, you can start your own business. That's the main idea behind it. It's already in the bilateral agreement, and the responsibility of the employer make sure that you are paid correctly, and the wages is very attractive, and the bonus is on the workers moving to Australia, that they will honored and be a great ambassador for Fiji. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bangalamba, and thank you for taking the time to join us on the show this afternoon. And who, and also I'd just like to add, who doesn't want to work overseas, yeah? Well, that's the show for you this afternoon, and thank you again for joining us. Feel free to also send us your comments on goldfm@fbc.com.fj. Until next week's Gold FM Speak Your Mind, you have a great week.